time is now 6 o'clock, and I would like to call the Rock County Board of Supervisors meeting to order at this time. The next item of business is invocation and pledge of allegiance led by Supervisor Ryan. Would all stand, please?
Dear Heavenly Father, Savior, Yeshua, and precious Holy Spirit, thank you for, thank you. Sorry, I'll start over. Dear Heavenly Father, Savior, Yeshua, and precious Holy Spirit, thank you for your hearing our prayers. We are asking for godly wisdom in all areas of Rock County business. We declare insight into all aspects of our decision-making as a body benefiting all our constituents. You alone see the big picture and trust you will lead us down the path you lit up before us. Thank you in advance. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ready? Ready?
Yep.
Next item is roll call.
Bob Zine. Here. Belkey. Present. Bostwick. Here. Bryan.
Here.
Cullen.
Here.
Fugelseth.
Here.
Gorman.
Present.
Holman.
Here.
Knutson.
Here.
Marshall.
Here.
Mawhinney.
Here.
Pure.
Present.
Pennycook.
Here.
Rashkin.
Here.
Ringhand.
Here.
Ryan. I know you're here, Sue. Schneider.
Here.
Schulz.
Here.
Schwartz.
Here.
Stevens.
Here.
Stone.
Here.
Sutter.
Here.
Sutherland.
Here.
Tillman.
Here.
Towns.
Here.
Whitledge.
Here.
Wilson.
Here.
Woodman.
Here.
Levy.
Here.
29 present, 0 absent.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Next item, 4, consent agenda. 4A, adoption of agenda. 4B, approval of minutes from September 11th, 2025. C1, appointment to the Coordinated Services Team, CST Children's Community Options Program, CCOP. E1, authorizing T-hanger roof replacement at Southern Wisconsin Regional Airport. E2, amending Resolution 95-7A-042, establishing terms for LEPC. 3, extension of Dayforce subscription. That is the end of the consent agenda.
Would anybody like anything removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve? Motion by Tillman, second by Bostwick. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes. Next item, please.
Next item is public hearing. We do not have a public hearing this evening. Item 6, citizen participation, communications, and announcements. We have several people signed up to speak this evening. When I call your name, please come up to the podium. Please come up through the center. Please state your name and municipality. You'll be given a 2-minute time limit to speak. Our first speaker is Antonio Nunez. On deck is Angela Rodriguez. Right, actually,
Sir?
right up here. Sorry.
Hello, my name is Antonio Nunez, and my municipality is the city of Janesville. I've been living in Wisconsin my whole life. I've been living in Rock County for the last 8 years. Most of that time I've lived here in Janesville. I was previously at the meeting of the Committee of Staff. I would like to reiterate here in front of the full board and supervisors what I spoke there. In the time that I lived here, this is my first time attending a proper county board meeting. Felt compelled to come here to this meeting today in person to directly address the board and express my shock and disappointment at recent comments made on social media by Rock County employee Heather Buchholz in regards to the recent public assassination of Charlie Kirk. She posted the following to social media, which many who were supporting her in this previous public meeting neglected to mention. She said, and I quote, "I'll fucking celebrate it. A man who basically didn't give a fuck about hundreds of kids being murdered because guns are worth it. Getting shot to death is the most poetic justice ever. Fuck that guy. Literally do not give a fuck that he died." County Policy 1.02 states, the county expects all employees to demonstrate professional, competent, and reasonable behavior, and to continually serve both on duty and off duty. as positive examples of the high-quality personnel affiliated with this organization and consistent with the high expectations of the public. It is clear from this policy that the county must have zero tolerance for such behavior. I ask the board today, are Heather's words positive examples of the high-quality personnel affiliated with this organization? Are these the kinds of words the board is willing to be associated with? I agree with county policy that public servants must be held to a higher standard. I myself am an employee of the state of Wisconsin, a fellow civil servant. I recognize that we cannot allow celebrations of violence or any similar kind of rhetoric to be spoken for or advocated for by any government employee or official. I demand the disciplinary action must be taken, namely the termination of this employee.
Time, sir.
Next speaker, Angel Rodriguez. On deck, Dennis Hilgendorf.
My name is Angel Rodriguez. I am a resident of the town of Beloit, and I'm here today. I want to ask you to think back with me to June of 2020, when this board met, not in person, but over Zoom, and passed a resolution condemning the death of George Floyd, and then shortly thereafter passed another resolution declaring racism a public health crisis. This board acted very quickly within a month of Mr. Floyd's death in order to pass this resolution condemning his death. And so I'm here today asking that in the same manner, because many of you were there at that time and are here now, I'm asking that you, in the same manner, pass a resolution condemning the assassination, the murder of Mr. Charlie Kirk. Many of your constituents were followers and admired the work that Mr. Kirk did. He stood for dialogue and debate, and he was killed for that. He died doing the thing that he loved to do, the thing that many admired him for doing, even though they might have disagreed with him. He was speaking the truth. He was dialoguing and debating with college students, and for that he was killed. And so I'm asking that you, in the same manner that you passed the resolution condemning the death of Mr. George Floyd, that you hold up to your own standard and that you would pass a resolution condemning the death of Mr. Charlie Kirk. You've done it before, so would you do it again? Thank you.
Dennis Hilgendorf. On deck is Brittany Ingalls.
Good evening. My name is Dennis Hilgendorf. I reside at 2205 West Crystal Springs Road, town of Janesville. I'd like to address a different subject. I was approached by a constituent of Rock County, not even one in my district, but I felt it's important to bring it to the board's attention, and I think everybody could agree on this. Currently, the county board publishes required legal publications or notices is only two newspapers. The Janesville Gazette in even years and the Beloit Daily News in odd years, if I'm correct. In addition to these, I am asking the board to also publish all legal notices on the county website with a quick and easy find link. If you turn to the handout, and I think everybody has one, looks like this that I handed out beforehand, you'll see a sample of what this would look like for someone using a computer or a cell phone. On the computer screen, under the Residence tab, you would simply add the link in the lineup on the left-hand side of the page, highlighted in red. On the cell phone view, a button icon link would be added as shown in red. This would allow all county residents access to county legal notices easily and in a timely manner. They would not be forced to purchase a paid subscription. It would also allow easy access to those who travel or temporarily leave the county for extended periods of time. I know myself, I get lost in trying to go through any website and find links, and some of the links don't even go anyplace, and this would be an added benefit to all the people in Rock County. Thank you.
Brittany Ingalls. And then Michael Ingalls is on deck.
evening. My name is Brittany Ingalls. I am from the city of Janesville. And normally, I don't do this, but given the recent circumstances surrounding Charlie Kirk, it's necessary. His voice did not die with him. His voice lives on in all of us. And for someone to disrespect him so horribly, that's unspeakable, and it should be punished with termination. I agree. Charlie offered debate. He didn't agree with everybody, but he allowed that conversation, and he spoke the truth. And you know, Charlie was a warrior for Christ, and that's part of the problem in our nation, is we've taken God out of everything. And that's what Charlie was trying to do, is put God back. And we're going to continue this. But that lady, Heather Buckholz, who said that, should be terminated. Thank you.
Michael Ingalls. On deck is Sheila Williams.
All right, so my name is Michael Ingalls, right here in Janesville. So what I want to do first, because I am going to touch base on Heather Buckholz, the hopefully soon-to-be former employee of county, is I'd like to actually offer a moment of silence for Charlie Kirk before we get started with anything else.
I would, if I could interrupt here, that I think this is public comment, so I think where we are now is for you to provide public comments.
I am
and then-
providing that by a quick 5-second moment of silence.
Right, but I'm just saying for this particular moment, I think if you have comments to
Then you can
portray.
put my time back on, and I'll continue. So, as being interrupted to take a moment of silence for a fallen hero, one of God's generals. I am part of God's army. I will not stand for this, and quite frankly, as my wife had mentioned, we will continue. And if I have to come to every board meeting and write letters, emails, Heather needs to be terminated promptly. Because if you want to mock the death of a fallen human being, a father and a husband to this now grieving widow, and allow her to work here, that's the sickest thing I've ever heard. And this gentleman up here who interrupted me wants to talk about God. Quite frankly, I don't see much God going on in here. We pray before this, but yet we completely ignore prayer. I would like everybody to actually pick up a Bible, turn to Scripture, and then look at what Heather did and tell me that I'm wrong. So for Charlie Kirk, I will have a moment of silence as I'm walking out, since we can't do that. God bless everybody.
Sheila Williams. On deck is Lisa Burnside.
Sheila Williams, Janesville, Wisconsin. No one is disputing an employee's right to speech. You have a county employee celebrating the violent death of another human being, using both profanity and inflammatory language on a public platform. It is about her conduct, not her content, that directly contradicts and violates your policy 1.02 that mandates its employees to serve as a positive example and to act with integrity and respect consistent with the high expectations of the public. This severely erodes the public's trust in the integrity, professionalism, and judgment of county employees in Policy 1.03. Ordinance 18.608 prohibits being disrespectful or bullying in dealing with the general public. These are the policies and ordinances that the board has voted to adopt. Their integrity depends on ensuring that enforcement is consistent and without favoritism. By failing to enforce your code of conduct policies and personnel ordinances now, you are setting a precedent that will severely prohibit your ability to manage employee conduct in the future. We ask that you fulfill your legislative and oversight role by demanding a full accounting from the county administrator as to why a clear violation of your policies has been ignored. If you are unwilling to enforce this policy today, then you must begin the process to repeal it tomorrow. Tell the citizens of Rock County that you no longer expect employees to be positive examples off-duty. Tell your managers that standards of integrity, accountability, and respect are now optional. Be transparent about the new, lower standard of conduct that you are setting for all county employees, because allowing this policy to stand while ignoring a clear violation is an act of administrative cowardice
Time.
that undermines the rule
I'm-
of law
I'm-
itself.
Okay, I just said time. So the county administrator told her, and then I reminded her that her time is up.
I was just finishing the
I know,
sentence.
but your time is up. Thank
I was
you.
just finishing the sentence.
I
like you
realize
allow
that, but
everybody else to finish.
Well, tonight I allowed everybody their 2 minutes or under.
Next speaker is Lisa Burnside. On deck is Dennis Wendt.
My name is Lisa Burnside, and I am the Township of Janesville. And actually, Rock County, word gets around pretty fast. And when I was at home and learned about Charlie Kirk's murder, assassination, martyrdom, as a Christian who is no longer going to be a husband, no longer going to be a father to 2 little kids, at a university debating on all of the videos that I had gone back to look at, because I didn't follow him all that closely, but I did know his values. And they were grounded on Christianity. And he was going to help young people to try to get themselves back on track, know that God loves them and wants to have a purpose for them. That was his debate. And it was on many campuses he was invited to, including Oxford. And university campus at Harvard, their motto is truth, which is veritas in Latin. And when you take out a person in the throat, that basically is a ritual saying there is no more free speech in this country. So yes, Heather can have free speech, but according to the handbook, she's supposed to have certain professional, competent, and reasonable behavior that travels not only here in the workplace, but it travels also in her own personal life, that she has to be accountable. She has eroded the trust of people here. It has shaken me to the core. And I have since also learned that groups of people who are like-minded like her have also carried a coffin to Brian Stiles' home. And U.S. Capitol Police are investigating that, and they're continually doing that on a weekly basis in front of his office on Wednesdays, 4:30 to 5, like clockwork. Witchcraft has also
your
been
time.
included.
Thank you.
Jezebel.
Thank
There
you
was
for your
SD
time.
witches. This is witchcraft.
Pam, thank you for your time. I'm going to ask, as we continue to call individuals, that when we say your time is up, that we be respectful of that. We said at the beginning that we were going to allow everybody 2 minutes. We do expect everybody to adhere to that. That's why I am saying I want to make sure that I'm being consistent, or we're being consistent with everyone that speaks. So that's why when the county administrator is saying 2 minutes, I would ask everyone to please end your comments at that time. Thank you.
Next is Dennis Wendt. On deck is Craig Keller.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dennis Wendt. I preside at 18327 West Church Road in Broadhead, Wisconsin. I'm a Rock County resident. You know, it actually pains me greatly to be here this evening. I wish I was here to talk about something that was better than what I have to talk about, but I have to say something. This piece of literature was handed to me the other day, and I was told there was a quote on there by a Rock County employee. And when I read that, I'm not sure there's words to describe how I felt. Now, when I walked in the room, one of the first speakers actually quoted and spoke that. I can't repeat that. You know, we don't have to like everyone, but we certainly shouldn't do that, which is in quote here. This is a person that's supposed to be working for me as an employee of Rock County. I don't want this person working for me in Rock County if this is how she feels. This Heather Buckle. I understand that the administrator of Rock County hasn't done anything to rectify this. I'm now hearing, and I'm here right now to find out, does he ever plan on doing anything about this?
That's your time, sir.
Thank you for your time. I want her fired.
On deck, or up next is Craig Keller.
My name is Craig Keller. I reside at 319 South Gilbert Street in Footville, Wisconsin. I'm here basically for the same thing everybody else has talked about tonight. I guess for me, I find it extremely disgusting that we're using free speech as a means to throw out the hate and it blows my mind that we've gotten so far away from having conversations and discussing things and trying to find a happy medium to celebrating somebody's death. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. There's accountability and consequences for everything we do. And I'm sorry, but I think that is grounds for termination. I don't want to see anybody lose their job or anything, but as a former county employee myself, I've gone through things myself and had to deal with things and see other people deal with things. To me, this is completely unacceptable. And just real quick, because we've talked about things, Jesus said in Luke 11, every kingdom divided against itself is brought to dissolution, and a house divided against a house falleth. And that Satan himself cannot even stand if he is divided. When are we going to wake up and come together and be one people again? This is disgusting.
That was our last speaker. Was there anyone else that wishes to speak that did not sign up?
Seeing none, the next item is communications. Is there any communication from supervisors? Supervisor Mawini?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to congratulate our corp counsel on his recent marriage.
Mike?
I've got it on. It's on.
Okay.
Did you hear me?
I was following corp counsel. He was saying, Mike, I think he knows what you were about to announce, so that's probably why he was saying.
I warned
you.
Congratulations, Rich.
So what she was saying, we would like to congratulate our corp counsel on his recent marriage. So that's what she was saying before. He was trying to tell her Mike was or was not on. So thank you. Any other communication from Supervisor Boswick?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good news. This Sunday, the Packers play the Cowboys. The good part of that is that the game is at night, so you have the better part of the day free. And if you have some time, I'd encourage you to make it over to Culver's on Milton Avenue between the hours of 10:30 and 2. If you happen to do that, anything that you buy, my youth paddling group gets a portion of the proceeds, and that will help pay for some trips. I know that Supervisor Stone has told me that he will be there, and I encourage you to come and join the fun. So thank you.
Any other supervisor? Seeing none, before we go over to staff, I would like to announce from the IT department that if you have your computer here this evening, please leave it with IT. If you don't have it, please drop it off. I'm going to put it in, say, John, if we can drop it off in John's office or give it to Haley by the end of the month. They want to do some updating on it. And if you don't drop it off by the end of the month, that's not giving them enough time to get the update done before October. And after October, it's not going to work like it should. So we're asking you to please, if you have it here this evening, leave it here with IT or drop it off in John's office by the end of the month. Any other supervisors? Supervisor Belkey?
I was going to talk about the WCA. One of the things that we went to, what is it called, the conference or the little breakouts, the breakouts was Make My Move, which was pretty interesting. I have information on that, but it's talking about bringing in different people, growing communities. It was a great learning curve. And then I was going to announce Casa of Rock County has their fundraiser, Fall Festival, October 4th at the Barn on the Prairie, $10, and children under 12 are free, and it's from 12 to 7.
Thank you. Any announcement from staff? Lisa? Okay. Supervisor Sutherland?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to remind everybody on the Rock County Comprehensive Plan Survey, try to get it out there, try to get people to fill it out. We have until next Tuesday, the 30th. Thank you.
Lisa?
So next Tuesday, just a reminder that the meeting to do the detailed review of the budget starts at 5:30. And I want to introduce you to another staff member that you might not know. Her name is Candace. She's going to be running the meeting. Don't pick on her too much. Okay.
And with that reminder on the 20, so the next thing on, okay. So the next, on that meeting on the 30th, if you notice on the invocation list, it says on the 29th, Supervisor Bryan, but Supervisor Bryan, if you could be prepared on the 30th to lead us in the invocation and the prayer, that would greatly appreciate it. And Supervisor Boswick?
One thing I did forget to mention is that the Parks Department is soliciting input from the public and from employees for the POROS plan. That's the plan that shapes the outdoor recreation lands and activities. They have to come up with a plan every, I think it's 5 years, and now they're in the midst of rewriting the plan. So if you take a look online, you'll see a link to that survey. So please take a look at that and fill it out if you might. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other announcements from staff? Seeing none, moving to the next item, please.
Next item, item 7, nominations, appointments, and confirmations. We do not have any further. Item 8, recognition of county employees or others. We do not have any further there. Item 9, introduction of new resolutions or ordinances by supervisors for referral to appropriate committee.
At this time, if there's any supervisor that has a new resolution or ordinance that they would like to submit, please bring it forward at this time. Seeing none, next item, please.
Next, item 10, reports. 10A, employee compensation 2026, Supervisor Wilson, Supervisor Schwartz, and Supervisor Tillman.
Supervisor Wilson?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to be presenting this on behalf of a couple of supervisors, and when we get to the end, there will be an opportunity for questions and answers, and all three of us, Supervisor Tillman, Supervisor Schwartz, and I will attempt to answer questions. It may be that there are unanswered questions, and we'll just indicate that if there are unanswered questions, we'll certainly do our best to find the answers to those questions. What we're presenting is an alternative approach to staff compensation. Give you just a little bit of background here. If you look at last year's budget, there were 1,341 full-time equivalent staff positions authorized in the budget. Total does not include the elected officials, so people like circuit court judges, clerk of circuit court, county clerk, and so on. Most, but not all, of the other roughly 1,350 county staff are compensated according to a wage grid that has 22 pay grades, A through V, and each pay grade within that plan in turn has 14 steps. I know you can't read this, but you may recognize it from having seen the pay grid. It goes on for many different pages, lists all of the categories, the titles of positions, and what you're seeing in the tiny little numbers that go across the page are the steps that I was talking about within those pay grades. Protective service employees represented by the various unions are also not on the grid. They're compensated according to negotiated settlements and have their own pay scales. County administrator, and as I mentioned, the elected officials also not included on the grid. If you back all of those out, you get to a little over 1,000 employees, 1,170 full-time equivalents. That's about 87% of the county's workforce. So a little less than 90% of the people are considered to be on the grid and compensated according to that grid. General basis for the grid was a compensation study, and some of you will remember the McGrath Human Resources Group that did the study and recommended a grid. There were some good reasons that we went down that path and had a consultant look at compensation. A lot of them had to do with identifying market rates. What was a good market entry level? What was a market top? What was a market middle? And that was felt to be necessary because of real competition in trying to hire and retain qualified employees. The study also addressed the fact that prior to the study, there were 12 different non-bargained wage schedules. So kind of a legacy to pre-Act 10. Lots of different wage schedules. Some of them you got from the bottom to the top in 2 years. Some of them were much, much longer than that. And so it was trying to address some of these issues. However, due to a number of issues, and the primary one being lack of funding, the format of the grid was implemented, the classification scheme was implemented, but the amounts on the grid were not. So that in part, we got a grid, and we've really been dealing piecemeal with the issues that have arisen from that grid over the last couple of years. What we're suggesting isn't an overall fix. What we're suggesting here isn't going to take care of all of the grid problems, but we think the approach is going to help in several ways. Historic approach to annual wage changes have been to apply a uniform percentage increase, a cost of living adjustment, or COLA. And that was what was done for 2025. The proposal says take the number of dollars that are set aside for increases in staff wages and distribute those dollars differently. What we're suggesting is that every one of those cells on the grid gets changed by $1. So opposed to applying a standardized percentage, $1 per position on the grid. Just to give you an example, this kind of zooms in on some of the stuff. You may want to look at your handout on this one. But the example would be if $17.52 an hour is what's on the grid, in 2026, you'd move to $18.52, so $1 more. If it was $17.83, that would go to $18.83. So each one of those numbers, hourly numbers, gets adjusted by $1. With a COLA, $17.52 gets adjusted to $18.05, $17.83 gets adjusted to $18.36. Oh, kind of, what's wrong with that? Well, the first thing that we think this approach addresses is pay disparity. Under the standard COLA approach, employees at the high end of the grid get much bigger raises than those at the bottom of the grid. 3% on a wage of $20 is a relatively small amount of money. 3% on a $60 per hour wage is a much larger amount. So there's a disparity that happens every time we apply the COLA approach. Let's compare those approaches. The uniform $1 approach for an employee near the bottom of the pay scale and one near the top of the pay grid. And you can take a look at these numbers. I picked grid grade C and grid grade T. The reason that I picked those is there really aren't very many employees in A and B. There are interns and people like that. There aren't many employees beyond T. In fact, I think there are about 20 in those upper categories. So this is kind of the heart of the mid-range where most of the employees are. Under the current hourly for grade C, step 2, is $19.23. 3% COLA goes only to $19.81. Again, that idea that that percentage generates a very small increase at the lower end of the pay scale. The uniform dollar increase would take that to 2023 instead. The annual increase under the COLA for that employee is $1,200. The annual increase under the dollar plan is $2,080. Now let's look at one of the upper levels. If we go to grade T, step 2, the current hourly is $61.21. The 3% COLA goes to $63.05. So, look at the difference top to bottom, $61.21 to $63.05 compared to $19.23 to $19.81. Quite a difference. The uniform dollar increase takes the $61.21 to $62.21, simply $1 more. The annual increase under the COLA for the person on that grade level is $3,820. Under the dollar per position, it's $20.80, exactly the same as the person at the lower end of the scale. Under the 3% COLA, the worker near the top of the grid gets more than 3 times the increase the worker at the bottom of the grid. A $1,200 increase under the uniform dollar. Under the uniform, both workers get $2,080 more. It should be noted, as I just said, there are very few employees at the very, very top or the very, very bottom. Only about 20 employees are in pay grades S, T, U, and V. The gap between the lowest annual salary on the grid and the highest annual salary on the grid is currently a whopping $149,198. So the annual salary of the person at the very lowest, the annual salary the person at the very, very top. That increases. In other words, the gap between the bottom and the top gets bigger if we implement a COLA. Under this plan, the hour per wage, the gap stays the same. Another thing that this approach would address, we think it addresses recruitment, and that's been an issue. I mentioned that was one of the issues why we did the wage study in the first place. The uniform dollar per hour approach would boost the entry hourly wage for the following wage grades by these percentages. You end up with the highest percentage for the lowest paid people, and then it gets smaller as you work your way through the scheme. So a person at pay grade G under the dollar per hourly compensation would get about a 4% increase. Pay grade H, 3.81, pay grade I, 3.53, pay grade J, 3.21. So as you go through the schedule to the higher levels, the percentage gets smaller. Examples of job titles that fall into G, H, I, and J, those ones that I just mentioned with increases that exceed the 3%. Highway Techs 1, Licensed Practical Nurses, Highway Tech 2, 911 Communications Telecommunicators. Those are going to sound familiar to some of you who serve on some committees because they're positions that we have problems recruiting for, positions where we have problems retaining employees, in some cases, positions where there's a lot of churn, a lot of turnover. A third thing that this accomplishes is that it mitigates staff health insurance premium increases. The dollar per hour increase approach ensures that the wage increases cover the worst case premium scenario for full-time employees. And the worst case scenario is full-time family coverage through Dean. So if I'm an employee and I'm taking full family coverage, the increase from the 1% that employees are paying in 2025 compared to what they'll pay in 2026, which is 6% of a premium that's actually gone up, works out to be about 94 cents per hour. So if I'm taking full-time family coverage and I got a wage increase of 50 cents, I'm essentially going backwards 50 cents in terms of the take-home pay that I'd get. The dollar is kind of gauged at a point that says there aren't going to be full-time employees that are getting an increase that is less than that worst-case scenario that we just described. You've probably got a few questions. We wanted to anticipate a couple of them. First one is, this is intended as a one-time change. We can't just abandon the COLA approach entirely. There are problems with doing that in terms of compression of the grades getting kind of squeezed together and so on. So we're suggesting this for 2026. There may be another wage study in our history, who knows? But this is a one-time implementation that we're talking about. Another question that might come up, we'd like to say that the approach doesn't change the process or eligibility for merit-based step increases. Those would still be there. So the step increases would be there, and there is an argument to be made that people at the top grade levels are really doing pretty well on their steps, and that in part compensates. At the very low, or at the very high end of the scale, the percentage increase using the dollar per position or dollar per hourly wage scale is still over 1%. So even at the top of the scale, there is a salary increase. It's just that it's 1% there, and way at the low end of the scale, it's about 6%. What are the next steps? Well, the first one is we need to identify the difference between what the county administrator proposes in the budget and the dollar per hour increase. Supervisor Tillman, Supervisor Schwartz, and I started working on this, and we used a 3% COLA as sort of our guideline. And so the dollar per hour really was based on that. And surprisingly and amazingly, we come very, very close in terms of cost of implementing the dollar per wage category to that 3%. If we've got less than 3% anticipated for employees' raises, there's going to be a difference. We're going to have to figure out how we can bridge that gap. But the gap is not going to be a tremendous gap. You know, we're not talking about this dollar is a dream and we're going to have to raise $1 million. It's going to be smaller than that. We need to identify methods of bridging the gap. What are the possibilities? This is going to have to be a budget amendment that we bring to the Finance Committee. And we would end up preparing a budget amendment for the Finance Committee and County Board to consider that would say, okay, if we want to implement the dollar per position on the wage grid, this is what would get us there in terms of funding the gap. At that point, I'll open it up for any questions that you might have, and Supervisor Schwartz and Supervisor Tillman can help me out on this. Shall I?
Supervisor Hoban.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do appreciate what you have brought before us. I think that was a very good piece of work, by the way. There was no comment really directed toward the part-time people. I know full-time is where the focal point was in this one, and able to retain employees is, we all know, very, very important to our county because of our lack of abilities to hold them for multiple reasons being said tonight. But as far as the part-time people, where do they fall into this grade that you're talking the $1? Because they're just every bit as important as the full-time people, because I know there are full-time people out there who are right now working for the county.
If you're on the grid, part-time or full-time, the same dollar would apply to you.
The dollar will come forward. Okay, because I do know there's full-time people for the county right now that are doing part-time work because they cannot make it on our county wage grid that's in there. So I commend this.
The difference on one of them, the reason I pointed out full-time, things do work out differently on health insurance. The dollar per hour is not going to cover health insurance if I'm a half-time employee, because I'm paying, you know, a proportional share. The health insurance is calculated differently. But as far as the base pay, the dollar would apply. If you're on the grid, it's $1 an hour.
Okay, one more thing on the top of that, please, if you don't mind. You were talking also about cost of living, COLA. I'm very, very familiar with COLA. I lived with it for 30 years. I know how that functionally works. It worked great if everybody's at the pay scale within $1 or $2 of each other throughout the whole organization. That was fine. But our discrepancies are vast, as you both pointed out. Is there a thought about if COLA was to be held as a product that might be utilized for our county, using it like a little bit like a reverse, kind of like if you're sitting there saying we have people at $18 an hour, you know, where you were kind of showing, and the dollar would take them up a bit. If COLA was to be put on there, if you were under these levels like A through V or whatever we were talking about, these grades, if you're down below in the lower levels of pay grade, you get your dollar, would there be a consideration under COLA to take that not from 3%, but like to 5%, up to a different one to try to minimize that disparity that we are fighting now.
I think the point is that at the very bottom of the scale, the increase actually is about 6% at the lowest cell. And it's high through those A, B categories. Supervisor Schwartz?
Yeah, I just want to clarify the question, Supervisor Holman. What I'm hearing is something I thought I was pushing on a little bit earlier in the budget process, is can we do a different rate COLA for those on the lower end of the scale versus the higher end of the scale? And certainly that was approached as a no, although I've seen other counties do it. So it is possible, but I don't think there was a lot of push to do it. So in my view, this is a better way actually than doing COLA anyways, is just let's try and get this grid a little bit more workable. Take care of some of this disparity that was put into play when it was put in and funded basically a COLA instead of actually doing the grid, and try and bring that back to a little bit more reasonable, where the people on the lowest end of the scale are actually getting more closer to market, at where they need to get, where we're having all the complaints and everything that's going on. So I think this is sort of a way to do that without trying to say you get X percent, you get that, where it works out mathematically that way. But there was some pushback certainly when I approached this topic at the joint budget / meetings. So that would not work to be able to do different rates of COLA.
Essentially, we freeze the difference, the gap between the bottom and the top by applying the same amount to each of those positions on the grid.
Supervisor Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the questions, well, there were a couple of my questions, and one was answered about how this would affect the budget for 2026. But the other question I had was, how does this differ from the 2025 payroll budget? Will we see more money put towards our payroll budget, or will we see less? Because what I was seeing was when you showed grid grade C and grid grade T with the $1 instead of the COLA, there was probably about almost a little less than $800 difference between the two, is what I was seeing. So I'm just wondering, is there going to be, if you do that, if you apply that across the board, are we looking at less payroll for this year, or what are we looking at? And does that fit the budget that you were given?
At the 3%, it was pretty close to a wash. If what's in the budget, and we've had conversations with County Administrator Light, but he's been working on the budget, and so we don't know for sure exactly what's in there. We assume, based on the fact that we worked this out based on a 3% COLA, that if there's a smaller COLA, say a 2.5% COLA, and that's kind of what we've been working with in the last few days, is what would it look like in a 2.5% as opposed to a 3. Under that scenario, we're probably about $400,000 short. So that that doesn't mean that this approach couldn't be implemented. You could implement the approach at less than $1 per person, or per number to make up that difference. Our question, I think, is going to be, the dollar seemed to be a really simple approach in terms of very understandable to people. I'm making $16.82, I'm going to be making $17.82. And basically, the people at the high end of the wage scale help pay for the people at the bottom of the wage scale. Because if I am one of those people who are, lucky enough to be in pay grade U or pay grade V, and, we're talking about just a handful of people, if I'm at those levels, my increase is probably 1.5%, as opposed to the 6% at the lower end. So very definitely, the higher wage people end up supporting the pay that we would be awarding to the people at the lower ends of the scale. I think the argument of the three of us that worked on this is that the people at the high end of the scale have done pretty well under the COLA for the last couple of years. And so this is just a step back from that for a pause.
Supervisor Sutherland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Supervisor Wilson, Tillman, and Schwartz. Really sounds fair, even, simple. And you mentioned this is a one-time thing. What would be the data that, and how would you analyze it to go on after this? The results, what would you be looking at?
I'm going to say it's above my pay grade, even with $1 more per hour based on that. It's complex. One of the first things that we did when we put this together was we had a meeting with the county administrator and with the head of human resources. And we provided the numbers and basically said, take a look at these and tell us what we screwed up. That really was our approach. What are we not thinking about? And kind of the answer that came back is it could work. I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but that's the understanding we've been moving forward with. The issues that I mentioned about if you abandon the COLA approach and wage compression is the kind of stuff that really is going to take digging into those wage scales and saying, okay, what happens under scenario A? What happens under scenario B? Is there some sort of a hybrid approach that we can take? Supervisor Schwartz mentioned that initially the three of us in looking at things, there were proposals sort of on the table that said, can we adjust the pay scales? Give a two-step bump to somebody who's in pay grade B, and adjust it in that way. What it worked out to be was this dollar approach seemed to be a whole lot fairer and certainly a whole lot easier to understand, and sort of freezes things in time without messing things up long term.
Thank you.
Supervisor Schultz.
Yes. You mentioned at the start of your presentation 2 groups of people, the technicians and the LT nurses, and I guess I don't see how we're addressing the pay differentials in other areas that are pulling people away to the areas that are paying better.
Yeah, this isn't a panacea, but here are those numbers that I said for pay grade G, H, I, and J. G, H, I, and J represents, I've got the percentages here, but that's the fat part of the salary schedule. That's where most of our employees live. And, we provided some examples here. What we're saying is if the comparison is I get a 3% or I get a 2.5% COLA, this plan does a 4% for people who are in pay grade G, a 3.81% for people who are in pay grade H, and so on. So it does help us in those middle ranges. It doesn't, we're not saying this solves anything, but certainly providing those people that are in those positions where there's a lot of competition or difficulty recruiting, giving them a 4% increase as opposed to a 2.5% increase helps. It goes in the right direction.
Thank you. Any other questions? Supervisor Cullen.
Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Wilson, you said your presentation was going to be 16 minutes today, and you were dead on. Thank you.
Thank you. I promised that this morning. We tried to pare down the presentation portion. We have no control over the questions and answers. I guess I'd like to invite Supervisor Tillman, any final comments that you've got?
Thank you. I think the most important thing that we were looking at was that pay disparity piece. And this approach is an option as opposed to the COLA. And in the future, we've said that this is a one-time approach, but perhaps next year there'll be a different approach that we take. We are concerned about compression issues, but we're also concerned about if we just stick with the standard COLA approach, the divide continues to get between the bottom levels of the pay grid and the top levels. So I think it's important that everybody consider what was the problem we were immediately trying to address. So.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Next item, 11, new business. 11C, review of the 2026 recommended budget.
John?
So good evening. While Randy's teeing up our presentation, we're going to have 3 people presenting to you tonight. We'll get you through the slides quickly. We realize maybe 16 to 20 minutes for Supervisor Cullen. Randy's going to start us out.
So this first part of the material is going to just kind of go follow what we've done in past years regarding the role of the county administrator and pointing out that our vision statement as a service to the public is our fundamental reason for being. And that per the statute, Wisconsin statute, the county administrator is responsible for submission of the annual budget to the board. Under the rules of procedure, board rules, Rule F4, a county administrator shall make an annual report to the board on the last Thursday in September of each year in conjunction with the submission of the recommended budget for the succeeding year. So under the section of annual report, what our past practice has been is to show that our strategic plan, which is consisting of 5 goals and our 16 objectives, and how our method of being, our purpose of being, is to serve the residents of Rock County. And so under a public safety goal, first of 5 goals, we obviously provide a variety of services, and in this particular area, we're looking at the 911 Communications Center. On the next series of slides, welcoming our new district attorney, Jason Sanders. And also on the right, the emergency management training. And then also looking at, in public safety, the demolition of the old jail, the old Pinehurst area, and the generator that supplies a variety of emergency needs throughout the buildings. The next objective, goal includes the infrastructure, environment, and agricultural sustainability. And obviously, we can't talk about infrastructure without talking about our highways. The picture here on the left is a little distorted. It looks like it's got an extra wide body, but that's just unfortunately how the image came out on our picture. But obviously, our roads are the maintenance of our roads is a high concern, a high priority. Looking at our airport, that's our new county jet that we just bought this year. No, just kidding, just kidding. But on the right is our firefighting equipment at the airport with our airport staff. Also under infrastructure, environment, agricultural sustainability, looking at our facilities management areas of the jail project and our jail in Rock Haven infrastructure in their ground floor. The next series of slides looks at our land conservation area and the fact that efforts of reducing runoff and reducing soil erosion and its impact upon agricultural. Agricultural economy is our number 1 or number 2 driver in our county. Showing our UW Extension
our crops educator providing a demonstration out in the field, and also a farmer workshop also sponsored by UW Extension. Also UW Extension under infrastructure and ag sustainability, a 4-H club presentation. And the far right is an example of our Rock Haven infrastructure, our glycol heating facility. Under community health and well-being goal, we have various departments that are involved in the United Way Day of Caring, including our health department. For our ADRC aging unit, I thought we were going to be establishing a full-time job of a Trishaw driver or that takes the seniors on this Trishaw that allows up to 2 seniors to go on various rides throughout the community. I thought they were going to be establishing a full-time position. I was going to apply for that, but they never got around to it. So it's only volunteers that are allowed to do the Trishaw, and obviously they're trained. On the right, also a ADRC aging hiking effort. Under community health and well-being, an emergency management planning session that involves a variety of community organizations doing exercises in order to properly respond to disasters and so forth. On the right is our economic support Day of Caring, working with our community action agency. Under organizational excellence, obviously, as I previously mentioned, staff, our human resources, our people that work for the county are a prime example of why we establish a goal of organizational excellence. On the left, our Rock Haven administrator and staff, and then on the right, our IT staff complement there. Under organizational excellence, also our public works staff, and also some Rock Haven staff. Our last goal is our quality of life area, and there's a picture of our UW Extension camp outing that they conducted. And on the right is our updated, most recent quarterly report of the broadband fiber, middle mile fiber, and antenna system throughout the county, otherwise known as the Bug Tussle Project. So just briefly wanted to fly through that as far as how our goals and objectives are and how the people within our county departments relate to that, those goals and objectives. And I'll turn it over to Kristen.
Can I just hit next? All right. What you all have been waiting for, 2026, recommended budget highlights. The first thing is we are presenting a balanced budget. With that, there's just over $69 million in our operating levy, about 9.7 attributed to our debt service portion of the levy, $289,000 for bridge aid, which is a limited levy, and then $1.4 million for the Prairie Lakes Library System, which is also a limited levy. The budget does meet levy limits based from the state of Wisconsin. Some value information, the equalized value for Rock County increased by 7%. 5% of that is due to appreciation, and 2% of that is due to new construction within the county. And so with that, the levy increase with our balanced budget is 7.05%, which equates out to a very, very minimal change to the mill rate from 2024's mill rate to 2025's mill rate. The 2026 recommended budget includes a 2.5% COLA for employees. It also includes the recommendations from the Ad Hoc Committee on Health Insurance about the employee contributions with that. It reduces Rock Haven's tax levy dependence by about $1 million. It increases our debt levy to reduce the structural deficit that has been in the past. We are assigning $3.2 million of sales tax to the highway fund to start the payback of the advance to from the general fund. And we're also recommending about $4.7 million in highway and park project borrowing. Kind of going back to that debt levy, as you can see, I've provided the debt levy over the last few years versus what we actually needed in debt service. Back in 2022's levy for 2023's budget, there were some one-time uses of about $5.6 million. The 24 23 levy for the 24 budget was 4.8 million. Last year's budget included about 7.6, almost 7.7 million of one-time dollars to offset the debt levy, and that's the structural deficit we're talking about here. So the 2026 budget increases that debt levy and only uses about $2.7 million of one-time funds. And those funds are the fund balance within the debt fund itself that we had spoke about a year ago when I had provided you with that information about how we had transferred funds from the Job Center Fund as well as levied for debt for the Job Center Fund, and that's what that 2.7 million is, was that overlapping collection of monies. So that is the only one-time funds or one-time sources that are being used to offset the debt levy. Again, that is a structural deficit, so that will need to be made up in future years. This is just kind of a tax levy history. I've been told that it's confusing providing 2 years in the columns, but I can't help my past practice. So the first year is the levy year because your taxes are based upon the value as of January 1st each year. So your taxes that you'll receive your bill for in December of this year will be based upon January 1st, 2025 values, and that feeds and pays for our 2026 budget. So that's why you see 2 years there. So if you can see in the last column, 2025 tax levy, which pays for our 2026 budget. So just breaking that down for you, as you can see over the years, our operating levies have increased, but they can only increase as much as our levy limits allow. The debt levy is not subject to levy limits, and as you can see, that has been in the past, 2021, 2022 budget years, they were, over $8 million. Starting in 23, we really significantly reduced our debt levy to reduce property taxes. And then you can see over the years, our total tax levy has increased from 72.5 million to 80.7 million for the 2026 budget. I also wanted to include our equalized value because I think that this is very important. Of course, your equalized value, your value within the community, of course, is what your property taxes are calculated on. But as you can see, we have had significant value growth within our community since 2021 or 2020's values. We went from 12.4 billion to 20.4 billion in values from 2020 to 2025. So in a 5-year span, we increased $8 billion in value, equalized value. And I also provided on the bottom there the equalized mill rate or tax rate, just because I don't have assessed value information, so we can only do our calculations on equalized value. And as you can see, the mill rate, the equalized mill rate from 24's tax levy to 25's tax levy is very, very minimal change. So a little bit about mill rate and property taxes. The total amount of tax levy divided by the total local assessed value for that taxing jurisdiction is what your mill rate is, how your mill rate is calculated. How you get to that is your apportioned levy. So the amount that our County Board of Supervisors, you will be approving in November, that budgeted levy is our apportioned levy. We take that divided by our TID out equalized value, and that equals an interim rate. Then we multiply that by the TID in equalized value, and that's the total amount to be levied across our community. And then the amount to be levied divided by the assessed value equals mill rate, and that's how property taxes are built. This graphic here is just kind of providing you some information about the portions of your property tax dollars, because when you receive your property tax bill, it is including the county, the municipality, whether it's a village, city, or town, your school district, as well as the technical college. So I wanted to provide that information because townships, villages, and cities have a little bit different breakdown. But as you can see, the county's portion of the property tax bill is either the smallest for villages and cities, or the second to the smallest. Actually, it's the third, it is the second highest in townships, just they're a little bit proportionately different. So with cities, you can see that our county's proportional value of your property tax dollar is 23.87%, while your municipality's portion is about 38.8%. Your school districts is 32.6%, and your tech college is about 4.7%. Kind of going on to your tax dollars at work here, I used a home value of $250,000, and I multiplied that out times the county's mill rate. So this is strictly the county's portion of the property taxes that our community pays, which totals about $1,046, is broken out in such a way. So debt, as you can see, of that $1,046, debt is about $101. Public safety is about $476. Human services, about $305. General government, like administration, HR, finance, things like that, it's about $77. Public works, $55. Conservation and development, $11. And education and culture, about $18.85.
Thank you, Kristen. Good evening, everybody. I get to wrap it up, and hopefully I'll be on time, as I promised Supervisor Cullen. We would make the 16 to 20-minute window. So an overview of the document you're going to be receiving tonight at a very high level. So after we get done here and the meeting's adjourned, we will give you each a copy of the budget. Just as interest notes, what the budget is going to look like at a 10,000-foot level is your expenses increasing by 2.45% over last year. Now, this includes all expenses. Interestingly enough, yesterday we got information from the Wisconsin State Department of Revenue that shows the actual, what they considered inflation year over year from August of 2024 to August of 2025, and they indicated that number at 2.7%. If you look at the growth in the proposed budget, we're under that number. And that includes everything, all expenditures. So I would consider that a modest increase. At the budget, in terms of your operating expense, your biggest single expense is people. We're a service industry. We provide the services through our employees. You're looking at a net increase in positions of 0.3% year over year, from the current budget to the future budget. So the budget you'll be receiving tonight, that is the net increase in positions, 0.3%. 2026 revenues, we just wanted to give a good picture of where all the money comes from in the budget. Yeah, you'll see one of the shocking numbers to me, at least when I looked at it and talked to Kristen about it, was the amount of our revenue that comes from intergovernmental agencies. You know, what we get from the state and other governmental sources. That is 46%. That's a huge portion of our revenue picture comes from that. You'll see sales tax, 20 million, you know, another big indicator or another big revenue source. So we wanted to give you this chart just to provide you insight into where the revenues are coming from, all the different sources and how we put the puzzle pieces together. The tax levy, where the levy goes by functional area. This is another chart. We just wanted to show you a big picture overview of where the levy goes by the functional area. And public safety, you see it has a big chunk over there. That also includes courts. That's not just all the sheriff's department. That's the courts, emergency management, everything. I know when I saw it at first, I was like, hey, you know, no, that's not the cost to run the sheriff's department. It's a lot of other departments that are defined loosely by the state as public safety, so it's much broader than what I would consider a traditional definition. Okay, human services, likewise. That is not just the human services department. It's a much broader definition that is inclusive of a lot of other departments. We tried to align it with how the state does it. The state definitions are much broader. Ours are a little narrower here in the county. But we wanted to just show you where the money's going in the proposed budget. So kind of a summary at a really high level. Our operating expenses, we're proposing a 0.73% increase in your operating budget. Capital projects, a bigger increase, 68.7%. This is an investment in the future, things like roads, that businesses need, that you travel down to go to and from work, school buses, et cetera. Those are things that we will have in this community for 30 years. That is the big increase we're proposing. Debt service expenditures will decrease by 7.9%. Takeaways. Again, our proposed expenditures are growing less than inflation. We're making sure that we're assigning, by not approving everything that was asked of us, we're making sure we get back on track with our public works repayment and making sure that we're set and targeting a 5-year repayment schedule. And that's 3.2 million back to pay back the advance. Headcount positions, modest growth, 0.3%. We're looking at and we're recommending borrowing for DPW projects. That's roads and parks projects. So to wrap it up, because I know everybody's a little tired, we're almost at 7:30, but we'll get you through and get out on time, as Supervisor Cullen asked. The recommended budget includes all recommended requests from the department. So you will receive every single request that we received. You get it all. The rumor is it's 500 pages. I heard it from this side of the room. I hope that side of the room heard the rumor too. I can confirm it. You're going to be getting a massive document tonight, but that's everything, and that's transparency. The document will also be posted online. Within it, you will see the capital improvement plan. Also, long-term debt schedules, okay? The electronic version I mentioned will be posted online tomorrow. We'll upload it. Haley worked all day to hyperlink it, so when you go on it, you can hyperlink it to other documents, because it is a big document. Budget appeals. This evening, we made sure you got a written copy of how to do a budget appeal. Okay, it should be on your desk, just the instructions. We will also send this out electronically so you have it through multiple sources. October 30th is the deadline for budget appeals to be included in the Finance Committee packet. So we'll make sure you get another copy of this electronically so that if you're interested in an appeal, you have the means to do it. So some more dates just to be aware of. Today, obviously, September 25th. September 30th, we get to review and explain the budget more in detail. So we'll see you back here next Tuesday. Month of October, 5:30. Randy wanted me around. It's 5:30 next Tuesday. The month of October, that's when the governing committees are going to be reviewing budgets. October 30th, public hearing on the 2026 budget. November 6th is the day where we have appeals at the Finance Committee. And then on November 12th, hopefully you'll be adopting your final budget and tax levy. So thank you this evening for your patience. Hopefully you have all the written documents. After the meeting, pop into the room where we have all the documents. We'll make sure you get a copy and drive safely.
Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion by Belkey, second by Boswig. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We're adjourned. Let's get it.